90,000 years ago, someone knelt beside a dead body. They didn't eat it. They didn't leave it. They covered it in red powder, placed a shell necklace on its chest, and buried it facing east. No one told them to do that. There was no priest, no church, no book. So why did they do it? That single act, a body, some red dust, and a direction, might be the oldest religious behavior we've ever found. And it happened before writing, before farming, before cities, before almost everything we think of as civilization. Today, almost every human culture on Earth has some version of religion, a god, an afterlife, a ritual, a rule about right and wrong tied to something bigger than us. That's strange, if you think about it. Nobody had to invent that. Nobody needed it to hunt or eat or make babies. So in this video, we're going to dig into three things. How scientists actually find religion in the fossil record when there's no book to read. What the single oldest piece of evidence for human belief actually is. And it's older than you think. And the leading theory for why the human brain started believing in things it could never see, touch, or prove. By the end, you'll understand why some scientists think religion isn't something humans invented. It might be something the human brain couldn't stop itself from doing. Here's the problem. Religion doesn't fossilize. You can't dig up a prayer. So archaeologists look for three specific clues instead. Number 1, burial with objects. If a body is buried with tools, jewelry, or food, that suggests belief in something after death. Number 2, symbolic art, carvings or paintings that don't serve a survival purpose. And number 3, ochre, a red mineral pigment that shows up again and again at ancient sites, often on bodies, long before it had any practical use. Here's the strange part. Ochre doesn't keep you warm. It doesn't help you hunt. It doesn't feed you. So why are ancient humans covered in it? At Skhul and Qafzeh Caves in modern-day Israel, archaeologists found human burials dated to roughly 100,000 years ago. Bodies were placed deliberately in pits. One skeleton was buried holding the jaw of a wild boar against its chest. That's not a burial for hygiene. You don't need a boar jaw to stop a smell. That's a burial with meaning. Even older is the ochre found at Blombos Cave in South Africa. Pieces engraved with deliberate cross-hatch patterns, dated to around 75,000 years ago. Nobody knows exactly what those markings meant, but they're not random. They're repeated, which means someone was trying to say something, even if we'll never know what. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for anyone who thinks belief is a modern human thing. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists found a Neanderthal skeleton, not Homo sapiens, buried with what some researchers argued were flower pollen clusters around the body. This claim is heavily debated. Some scientists argue the pollen came from burrowing rodents, not deliberate flowers. Even if the flowers are disputed, the burial itself wasn't. The body was placed deliberately, in a fetal position, protected by stones. If Neanderthals were doing this too, that changes everything. It means the instinct to mark death as meaningful might not be unique to us. It might be older than our species. So here's the real question. Why would evolution ever favor a brain that believes in things it can't see? The leading theory is called agency detection. Imagine you're a human 100,000 years ago, and you hear a rustle in the grass. If it's just wind and you assume it's a predator, you waste a second of energy running. But if it's a predator, and you assume it's just wind, you're dead. So brains evolved to over-assume danger, to see intention everywhere, even when there isn't any. And once your brain is wired to assume something caused that, it's a short jump to assuming something caused the sunrise, the storm, the death of a loved one. Not wind, not chance, a someone. That instinct kept you alive on the savannah. But it also might be the exact same instinct that built every god humans have ever worshipped. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Religion might not have started with a philosophical question like, what happens when I die? It might have started as a survival glitch, a brain so paranoid about invisible threats that it started seeing invisible causes everywhere. The same wiring that kept your ancestors alive by assuming the rustling grass was a lion Is the wiring that thousands of generations later assumed the sun was a god, the storm was punishment, and the dead weren't really gone? In other words, belief in the unseen might not be a flaw in human thinking. It might be the exact feature that let our species survive long enough to build everything else. So go back to that person kneeling over a body 90,000 years ago, covering it in red powder, placing it facing east. We still don't know exactly what they believed, but we know they believed something, and that belief was strong enough to make them do something with no survival benefit at all. Maybe that's the real answer, too. What was the first religion? It wasn't a god. It wasn't a book. It was a feeling that death and life meant something more than biology. What do you think came first? The belief or the burial? Let me know in the comments. And if you want the next video where I dig into what ancient humans believed happened after death, hit subscribe so you don't miss it.